Hi everyone, I'm Virginia Killmore and welcome to my studio. All week long I have been making and sending Valentine's Day cards to residents of nursing homes. Over the weekend I saw a great article in the Syracuse newspaper by a gentleman who's trying to make sure that every resident in nursing homes all over the state get Valentine's Day cards. And I thought, what a great project. So I'm doing my part, sending off cards. And the best part is that I have a list for you to look for if you're interested in participating of all the nursing homes in our area. So if you think you're interested, I have more information where I have all the information on the list of what you'll need to make this card. There's a link for you. Thank you, and I hope that you'll participate, but let's get started on making this lovely card. So this card is sort of a combination of a bunch of cards I saw. I love this pattern and I couldn't figure out what it was and was so excited to realize I already had the stamp set. It's called Textured Essentials. It's sort of a scroll work. So I have that, and then I love this set. I use Posted For You. I know you have seen cards made with it. I use this stamp set as well. So the card is pretty basic. It's just a piece of Crumb Cake cardstock that's been folded and scored at 4 1/4, so it's 8 1/2 by 5 1/2. A piece of Cherry Cobbler cardstock that is, what is it, 5 3 3/4, and then a piece that's 5 1/8 of Crumb Cake. I actually have that backwards. This is 5 3/4. The Crumb Cake's 5 3/4 by 5 inches, and then the Cherry Cobbler's 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. That's so that I get a very tiny little line of Cherry Cobbler going around. So to make the card, I'm going to need to stamp on this first and then make this little cutout. So I'm going to be using this punch, but to get started, we just really need to do the stamping along the edge here. And I am going to use soft suede, which I noticed is not on my list here. Oh, yes, it is. I did actually do that. Sometimes I do things right. And I'm just going to ink up my stamp. Make sure I got it nicely inked. And then just try to sort of fit this in here. I want it a little bit off, but not so much that that I don't have enough to go across. Same thing here. I want it to line up, but a little bit off. Hopefully not overlapping, and that looks pretty good. And that's sort of where I'm going to be putting my stamp, so it'll look good in that spot. So I'm all set with that. I also need to stamp my sentiment, and I'm going to do that on a scrap piece of paper and then punch that out. So my love. Okay, so now I'm going to start coloring that in, and that I'm going to do using blends. I love blends because of the way they come together. I should probably have the card out so that you can see it and so I can remember what I did, because this is my biggest problem. I make these cards sometimes a week ahead of time and then I forget how I did them. So I'm going to go ahead and start coloring in. And I'm just using one value of Granny Apple Green, and I think it's the dark. Yes, it is. Usually I like to use 2 values, but because the areas are so small, you can almost not see the difference. So I just went ahead and made it all one color, and then I'm going to use our lifter pen to sort of make that second value. I jump all over here. Get the green from the base of the flower. And then just get my stem colored in. Now, to make that a little bit lighter in some areas, I'm just going to use the lifter pen, and it takes a second for that to show. So I'm lifting off a little bit of color right there, and I'll show you in a second close up. Now, with the flower, I did want drama. So I worked mostly at the bases of the flower. And then I came back in with the light color, and I'm going to use that to fill in some of my letters. Well, I had a little bit going out of the line, but remember, this is a handmade card with love. Just thought I'd add a little dot to some spots here and there just to add another dimension. Okay, and same thing I did with the lifter pen, I'm going to do to my flower, sort of at the top. Now, a lot of people ask me, why can't you use the lifter to lift all the ink out? And I probably could. I have done that before if I've done a real bad boo-boo, but it's so tiny, you can barely see it. I'm just going to live with it. Now, I do notice that the way I have this, I cannot cut this, so I have to cut this off to get in to cut this out. I'm going to go ahead and cut this. And I'm going to actually center it a little bit to the left because you're going to see what I'm going to do. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to center it because I have to cut around all four sides. So because I want to have this as the border, I'm going to take that right out of my Cherry Cobbler scrap piece. I need to trim down my love. So I'm going to use my little chopper that I have. That I got last year when a lot of people became demos during celebration. And I'm just going to chop off a little bit on all four sides, so bear with me. I don't want to chop off too much. I want to just chop off enough to make it, you know, so that I can still see that border. Now the last side. Okay, so by doing that, I now have something that fits perfectly in there without having to spend, you know, without having to measure it. That's what I like about it. I hate measuring. I'll be honest with you. And I'm going to put dimensionals on that and get that right on the card. Okay, so I used a scrap piece that I had left over from cutting out this piece for here. I just have a scrap piece out. It's a little bit thicker than the one that I have in here, but I kind of like that because after I did this card, I thought, I wonder if I would have liked it a little thicker. So we'll see. I might still cut it. So let's put it together. Let's put our card together. We need to put this down first. And then I'm going to make my ribbon like I always do. I take about an 8-inch piece of ribbon. I'm going to make a knot or a square knot, as I learned in Girl Scouts. Right over left, left over right. And then I pull up and out. And now I'm just going to trim that a little bit so that it looks nice. Okay, let's get all this garbage over here. And because I want it set off to the left a little bit, instead of cutting it right down the middle, I'm going to cut it a little bit up in here. That gives me a shorter end on one side, okay? And I can go ahead and apply that. Now, I have to make a decision right now if I like it really thick, and I sort of do. I'm happy with that. I think I'm going to flip it like this. I kind of like that better. Yep. So I am going to glue this down right across here, and then I'm going to put my ribbon on. I always put my ribbon on with snail or Stamp and Seal because it just grabs it right away. I can sort of lay that where I want it, line it up. And then, of course, use some glue. And now I'm almost ready to send off a Valentine to someone in a nursing home this week. I hope you decide to join me in this project. I have lots of cards sitting around because I make cards all the time. I'm going to also put dimensionals on this. And I'm going to concentrate the dimensionals on the corners like that because I want it to go around the ribbon. Oh, I love that card. I think it's so simple and so nice. And I love that I use this Textured Essentials. I bought the stamp set a long time ago and have barely used it. And now I'm very happy. Now I'm going to show you close up so that you can see. Do you see how that gets lighter right in that area here and here? That's from the lifter. The lifter pen does that. So hopefully you can see why that's a great pen to be used. And thank you for watching. I hope to see you tomorrow. I have a great card for you Wednesday. Have a great week, and I'll see you tomorrow.